welcome to Graceful Healing, a podcast to get straight talk about healing and living again. My name is Maureen Lake. I'm a holistic health coach, speaker, author, and thyroid disease fighter. Each week, I'll be bringing you graceful conversations to inspire you to seek new ways to hit the reset button to catapult your health and vitality to new levels. Listen in and open your heart to all the new possibilities. Are you ready? Let's do this. I'm not sure what I can say about my interview with Cedric Bertelli. He is such an amazing person. And as a former special ed teacher who loved working with children who just happened to have a behavior difficulty or two, I was so intrigued by his message of understanding. Growing up in a tiny village in France, population 80, Cedric became a culinary expert for the Ritz Carlton Hotels. And now he's an expert in emotional health using the TIPI method, TIPI. I'm in awe of what he's been able to accomplish in the 10 short years since he left his job with the Ritz. Every teacher, parent, therapist, every human needs to understand how our thoughts rule our emotions and how we can use techniques to overcome some things, major things, such as anxiety, stress, panic attacks, PTSD, anger, and grief, just to mention a few. Please enjoy this amazing conversation with my first male guest, Cedric. Yay! You will not be disappointed. I know I wasn't. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to have Cedric on my podcast today. His topic is near and dear to my heart, and you'll understand why in a few minutes. Cedric, thank you so much for being here.
Hello, Maureen. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you bet. You bet. So can you just share a lot about your personal story and journey, and especially how you landed into the field that you're in today? Because I'm sure it's going to be fascinating information.
Sure, I'll be happy to share. I was born in France, in a tiny little village called Villebazy, in the south of France. When I say tiny, I mean it. It's about 80 people.
Oh my gosh.
So we were 80 in the middle of the forest, basically, you know?
Oh.
Literally. And I had a very happy childhood, great parents, surrounded by nature. I really had a great childhood. And still I was a very anxious child, very anxious, very nervous since I can never remember. So I grew up in this little village, and I decided as a teenager to go into culinary school when I was 14 years old.
Oh my gosh, 14.
So that's what I did. I went to culinary school and learned how to cook, learned how to serve, and went through the studies and did 2 years of college. And still in hospitality and restaurant management. While I was going through all that, I was still dealing with anxiety and a low-grade depression, a lot of anger, especially toward myself. But working in restaurants really helped me to create a persona. You're almost on stage when you're in a restaurant.
Sure.
So that helped me a lot. And during my last year of study in college, I had the opportunity to come to Burlington, Vermont.
Oh, wow.
As you could say. For my last internship. And so I did, and that opened the door for me to come and work for the Ritz Carlton Hotel companies here in Half Moon Bay, California. And that was my first job out of college. Well, not really my first job. My first job was that I opened my own restaurant in south of France, right off of college, and then time for the paper to go on to get ready and all. I moved to California, Half Moon Bay, to work as a cook.
I love Half Moon Bay.
I love Half Moon Bay too.
Yeah. What a great place to go to.
Yeah, I got very lucky. Very lucky. Anyway, long story short, I did a pretty successful career at the Ritz Carlton. I ended up being the director of restaurants for them up until 2009. So I was managing the whole front of the house. And as I was doing that, I was always trying to find ways to feel better for myself. So I was going through psychotherapy for this kind to try to deal with this anxiety. Nobody, by the way, around me had any idea for what I was going through. I, like many people, I was very good at hiding it.
Yeah.
And I found a program in France. As I was doing a Google search in French from the US, I found a program in France that was claiming at the time that in 30 minutes, anyone could resolve any kind of emotional difficulties completely and permanently. So I was quite skeptical, but I said, okay, why not? Being in California, I tried pretty much anything, running naked around bonfire, beating pillows. You name it. There's everything. So I said, okay, why not? So I did a session with this one guy in France about an emotion that was coming back on a daily basis for me. And the emotion I worked on, that was anger, after one session did not come back. So it's not like I was controlling better. It's not like it just wasn't there. So I became very intrigued, and I followed the training with this guy to learn how to resolve my emotion on myself by myself. And well, I did pretty good at that. I had several emotions I didn't want to feel anymore. I worked them out, didn't come back. And at this point, I became very curious, and I asked to join the program. And they said, yes, join us. So I quit my job here in the Ritz, and I went to study with them for 2 years in France.
That was a big leap of faith.
It was, and I'll tell you what, it was pretty damn scary.
Yeah, I bet. What an amazing job to be working for the Ritz and then just to give it up must have been pretty impactful.
It was completely impactful. It changed my life. It literally changed my life. And I needed to know more about it. So I went there and I studied the technique on how to help others to resolve emotional difficulties. And I came back 2011 in the States, and I started to teach for them. The program was called TIPI in France, TIPI.
TIPI. Okay. I haven't heard of that at all.
I was the only one teaching for it in the States for a while. And up until last year, I was teaching for them. And in the same time, I was studying the brain, studying neuroscience. And last year, I stopped working with them, and I founded the Emotional Health Institute. So Emotional Health Institute is a collaboration between myself, a couple doctors from France, and a professor from Germany. And the objective of the Emotional Health Institute is to understand how the brain constructs emotion and how the brain can deconstruct emotion naturally and organically, if I may say. So the Institute is doing fantastic. We are doing trainings, we're doing programs, we're teaching, as we talked about before being on air, we're teaching educators, teachers how to do this work with kids. We're teaching therapists, counselors, coaches how to resolve emotional difficulties with their clients or their patients. And of course, we're having a whole directory of certified practitioners that do session with people who have emotional difficulties, disruptive emotional pattern. So that's what I do now. I'm the founder and director of the Institute, and I'm teaching all across the US how to resolve emotional difficulties.
Wow. And I can't even think of a more important time in our history than now to implement something like this in the schools, for sure.
In the school, and for parents, and even for therapists,
Sure.
People need to understand that you do not have to struggle for years over an emotional difficulty. The brain has the natural capacity, has the powers, the plasticity to resolve any kind of disruptive emotional pattern. And that's what we teach. That's what we teach.
Well, I know as a previous special education teacher, a lot of the students that I worked with had dyslexia, and part of getting dyslexic students to read better was rewiring the brain. And so is that kind of similar to what you're doing? We would create new neural pathways that hadn't been created before so that those students could learn certain techniques and skills in order to read. So I'm just trying to understand, is that kind of what you're doing or what?
It is a bit different. Really, our expertise is about emotion and emotional pattern. So as you probably notice, as a teacher, some of those kids are actually very smart.
Oh, yeah.
But most, actually, I should say, all those kids are very smart. But some have, difficulty reading for, many reasons, maybe ADD, ADHD, or whatever it is. But some is just an emotional blockage.
Sure.
They just can't get it. It's like for me as a kid, I just couldn't get math. And I wasn't an idiot per se. But like, for example, math was creating a total blockage for me. No information can go through my mind. Wasn't able to understand a thing. It definitely was an emotional blockage there. Our expertise is really emotions and understanding that the brain constructs emotion based on past experiences, based on past trauma, conscious or subconscious. What we're doing, what we're using to heal or to resolve emotional blockages or emotional patterns are the physical sensations present during an emotion.
Oh.
What we call in neuroscience interoception. The interoception is the sum of sensations felt in our body during an emotional experience, during an emotional difficulty. Those physical sensations create a direct link, a roadmap, really, to the origin of the emotional difficulty or the emotional blockage. Basically, those physical sensations felt by a child or felt by an adult during an emotional experience is a gate to resolve it once and for all, to resolve this emotional difficulty once and for all. And that's what we do. So when I train teachers or educators to do this work, they do what I call an intervention. When the child is facing an emotional problem, a blockage, a pain, a struggle, the teacher is trained to get the child to focus on the physical sensations and to let the body process what has to be processed. Those physical sensations that the teacher will be able to link the child to will be present in the body of the child between 2 seconds and a minute max. But if the child is able to be present with the sensations in a very specific way, the emotion or the blockage that was lived by the child will not come back ever again.
Wow.
And we see it happening again and again and again here. And that's the same thing for an adult. A disruptive emotional pattern is an outdated prediction from the brain. That's all it is. That's the brain creating a prediction based on a stimulus that it perceives being a source of danger. The physical sensation that we feel during an emotion, that the way that we know that we feel an emotion is because we feel sensation in our body.
Right.
And the cognitive brain, the intellectual brain, so to speak, take those physical sensations, put them into context, and so to speak, realize that you're feeling an emotion. Those physical sensations that come at first when we have an emotion, this interoception, are the key to heal emotional patterns.
This is fascinating. I'm just like soaking it in. I'm thinking about all the kids that I used to work with, some behavior problems, some on the autism spectrum, some high functioning autistic kids that could totally probably benefit from this 100%. And just
Absolutely.
And then just your everyday average kiddo that has so much stress and anxiety in their life for whatever reason. Then I think about myself. I mean, I used to have a pattern of panic attacks when I was younger that I never understood. And to this day, I still don't understand.
You can't, there is something we need to understand. Emotions don't make any sense.
Oh, that's good to know.
Emotions do not make any sense. A big work that we do at the Institute is to demystify emotional difficulties. Like sometimes, for example, like my parents, they were fantastic parents. There's no reason, no conscious reason for me to be anxious and to have panic attack just like you did. Well, it's not the parent's fault in any way most of the time. Then the child has depression, anxiety, or anger issues, or whatever it is. It is our own emotion. Emotions are created some of our emotions are created very early on in age. Sometimes in the womb, sometimes when you come out from the womb,
Yeah.
But it's almost impossible to retrace the origin of an emotion. Almost impossible.
Okay.
What is happening, to give you maybe a bit more of an insight, what we understand create an emotional pattern is an instance of very high stress.
Mm-hmm.
And what you and I today as adults live as a very high stress is very different from what a baby lives at very high stress.
Sure.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
when there is a very high stress, the subconscious mind record everything that is happening during this episode of stress arousal. So you're living a quote unquote traumatic event. The cognitive brain, if it's developed enough, shut down because that's a natural process. However, the subconscious brain record everything that is happening to you, what's happening around you, what's happening in you, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste at that moment, what you feel on your body. And the subconscious brain also record what is happening viscerally inside of your body, your physical sensations. One of the main jobs of our brain is to predict. Our brain predict. Do not react to stimuli. It predict. So after a traumatic event, and we lived a lot of them during the pregnancy period, at birth, and early on in our lives. Once our subconscious brain later on, as we're a child, or as we are a teenager, or as we are an adult, when the subconscious brain sense one of the elements that was present during one of our traumatic events, the subconscious brain is going to automatically predict what you're going to feel in your body sensorially.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to generate in a snap the physical sensations that it remembers feeling at the time that is assimilated to the stimulus that you're in presence with.
Mm-hmm.
Those physical sensations generated by the subconscious mind are the very first thing that you feel when you realize that you have an emotion.
I can totally identify with that with my past panic attacks, 100%. That makes such perfect sense.
Now you see, when you had a panic attack or when you had panic attack, the solution to your panic attack is within the panic attack. When we have a panic attack or when we're angry or when whatever it is that we're living, we're trying to come out of it. We're trying to cope with it because we feel unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
Now the solution for the brain to stop generating the panic attack reaction is to stay connected to the physicality, to the physical sensation and you feel during the panic attack or during whatever emotion you're dealing with. In order for the brain to reset completely and permanently the emotional difficulty that you want to heal, the secret is to simply stay, and it's not easy, to simply stay with the physical sensation present during this emotion without trying to stop them or without trying to understand what's happening. From a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
From a safe place, re-experiencing completely and consciously those physical sensations. Going past those physical sensations and getting the brain to realize that what it was perceived as a stimulus nowadays is obsolete because we're fine, we're safe and sound, we're able to go through this experience consciously and nothing happened to us.
Right. Wow.
This reset completely and permanently the emotional response.
So if you know ahead of time how to manage something that might happen in the future, I'm just trying to think, like, because in the past with my panic attacks, like, obviously the physician told me to breathe into a paper bag. So I would like always have a paper bag in my car wherever I went. But knowing ahead of time that I needed to work through and kind of live through the panic attack would have been so much better than just having like a crutch to try to help me through it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in many ways, a crutch is reinforcing the belief of your subconscious mind that you're facing a danger.
Exactly.
You've got to go into the belly of the beast. It's almost like Greek mythology.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
the anxiety feels like a monster, like a dragon that overwhelms you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you need to get into the belly of the anxiety, into the belly of the beast, knowing that you are safe, knowing that you're a hero, knowing that you're immortal. You've got to feel but you got to feel this anxiety completely, knowing that you're safe.
Wow.
To let it go. And it's not magical. It's neuroscientifically logical, and it's working absolutely 100% of the time. That's what we do at the Institute. We train practitioners that guide people through sessions and can teach people how they can do that on themselves, by themselves, how they can be autonomous.
That's wonderful, because so many times you get involved in, say, like therapy that you're in for years and you never really resolve anything.
For me, it's disrespectful of the clients or the patients.
I agree.
We all have in us this capacity. It's not easy to get in the emotion. It's actually very much counterintuitive.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
As we feel the panic attack, all we want to do is escaping it.
Exactly.
Yesterday, a couple days ago, I did an interview with a lady who was specifically an expert of anxiety. I was telling her as a child, the only way my mom could calm me down when I was getting in this crazy mode was to take me with her into a cold shower. The shock of the cold will pull me out of my anxiety. And it's another coping mechanism. But people struggle with anxiety, and it's scary.
Sure. And there's so much stress in our society today that no wonder so many people are anxious.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. It's the same thing with anger. It's the same thing with depression. It's the same thing with anything chronic. And I would say it's in our life we realize the big emotions. Like we are aware of the big stresses, the big fears, the big anger. But there are all those little emotions that we are going through on a daily basis and we ignore, because it's easy to ignore them, because it doesn't take you in the guts like a panic attack does. However, those small emotions, the small annoyances, the small sadness, the small whatever it is that we do not attend to, these are the most dangerous emotions that we have in us. And now with over 10 years of experience, I can assure you that those small emotions that we don't pay attention to are the ones that create all the chronic physical pain in our body. The backache, the asthma, the eczema, the tumors even, all those emotions that we do not attend to. Once we or if we have the will to become self-aware of those little emotions and that we take the time to resolve them, that we learn how to resolve them and take the time to resolve them, it is life-changing in the way we approach things.
It's like the best preventative medicine there is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we can teach our children, if we can teach our kids very early on how to do that by themselves, can you imagine the generation of kids we're going to allow to develop?
Wow.
So that's kind of the mission here.
Oh, gosh. And what a wonderful mission, because like I mentioned to you before we went on air, living and teaching in Denver, Colorado, that's had more than their share of heartache. I go into the schools now and the incidence of suicide is increased. Everything is increased because of not being able to handle the stress and anxiety that's occurring in our school system today. And I can't even imagine if you give the kids some coping skills early on, how that can change everything.
Yeah. The beauty of ignoring is what we're providing the kids with are not coping skills. It is resolving skills. How many of our fears are we dealing with as adults? We learn to deal with our fears. We learn to hide them. We learn to manage them. But I assure you that most of us adults, we're dealing with the same stuff that we used to do very early on age. We just learn to manage it better. And that, of course, that's going to impact us. That's going to impact the way we relate to others. That's going to impact our physical body.
Yeah.
I did a session with my dad 4 years ago on his fear of dark. I never knew that my dad, who was 60 at the time, had a fear of dark. And he opened up because it was a special time of his life, and he just let it out. But then I realized all the holiday celebration we did at home, he always wanted to turn on all the lights. And my mother and I, we just wanted to have some candles over, to create an ambience. And he was just turning the lights full blast every time. And for all my life, with man, this guy is really annoying. Well, the reason was that he was afraid. He wasn't comfortable with just candlelight. Never he would have said that to my mother or myself.
Sure.
all those things that we're dealing with for a lifetime, that we'll be dealing with for 30, 40, 50 years maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway.
Jeez. So tell us like what you're doing now. I know you're working with some of getting your work into the public schools and working with children and teachers, but share with us everything that you're doing. And how long ago did you stop working for the Ritz and go into this whole new area?
I quit in 2009. So I changed career about 10 years ago now.
Wow. That is so impressive. It really is. To give up such a lucrative career, and then it's amazing what you're doing now. I'm so impressed by you.
Oh, well, please don't. It's everybody can do it. Believe me, if I can do it, everybody can do it. And sure, at the beginning when I came back from France, wanting to share this work here to start to do trainings, I mean, nobody wanted to hear about it. Mm. First of all, I had no formal education, no PhD, no master, nothing. And it was too foreign to people to think that you could heal within minutes. Even 10 years ago, we were not talking so much about brain plasticity as much as we talk about it today.
Sure.
So when I came back, I started working in restaurants again. So during the day, I was meeting people and doing sessions, etc. And at night, I was bartending, for a long time, up until a few years ago. And finally, yeah. And, things came up the way that it's supposed to be. And the training started to pop up, and we start to train people, and an awareness start to be created. And thanks to people like you as well, who give me a voice, give us a voice.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. So
the question that you asked earlier, and I didn't, what we're doing now at the Institute is training. We're teaching therapists, coaches, but also pastors, people who are mentors in their community, how they can resolve emotional difficulties with their clients, their patients, their students, anybody. And we train educators more specifically on how to do that with their with their students.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we're providing trainings for people to learn how to do this work on themselves, by themselves. Train certified practitioners that can help anybody all over the USA.
Okay. So how long does it take to become a trained certified practitioner?
So to become a trained certified practitioner, it's quite short. It's, let me put it together, about 8 days of trainings.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do continuous education seminars.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
And to learn to do that, to learn to be a trained practitioner, it's 5 days in person, and the rest of the training is done through Zoom or Skype, this kind of media.
Mm-hmm. That's what's so wonderful about today, right? You can do it anywhere, any place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's important for us to see the students at least twice in person as a small group, so we can really practice hands-on,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we do.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. So I see, like when we were talking, I know that you have an online course for emotional freedom. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. This online course for emotional freedom is to learn to resolve our own emotional difficulties. So I crafted it through 5 weeks. Each week there is a video with specific steps that will take you to completely own and master this physiological capacity for emotional regulation. At the end of the 5 weeks, there is a 30-minute, sometimes it's more, of course, time that we speak on one-on-one with the person who went through the training, and we ensure that the person knows exactly how to resolve their own emotional difficulties. And the same course is available as a course, interactive, with me or with other trainers, where I teach you on this time, if we do it interactively, is 3 times 1 hour. And I teach you how you can completely be in charge of your emotional well-being.
Wow.
It is short because it's not complicated. It's just unlearning a lot of things and allow the body to do what it's supposed to do to resolve it.
So if the body needs to, I don't know, I'm just trying to think, like, breathe rapidly and your heart rate races and your mind goes crazy with all sorts of thoughts. You just allow that to happen and just work through it, basically, or because you're not trying to intervene in any way, you're just letting it occur?
What is very important, Maureen, is to pay attention to the physical sensations.
Mm-hmm.
So the thought cannot be a part of the picture. All your attention need to be on the interoception, on the physical sensation, and specifically on 2 or 3 physical sensations. Observe them and be curious, so to speak. Observe what's happening in your body without impacting them whatsoever. That's the key for the subconscious brain to update a prediction. But if people take the trainings, and we're trying to make the training like super affordable to really make this information as available to people as possible, it is always better to take a training, even a short training, even an online training, so you know exactly how to do it, and it is yours for life.
Sure. That's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, because I can just imagine that you do need to have some coaching and some insight into how to manage through what you're feeling, because you do let your thoughts get in the way. That's for sure.
Yeah, and the key is to not. You know, if you pay attention to your sensations, your thought cannot pop up. We are either way in our intellect, or we are in our physical, in our sensorial. But consciously, as human beings, we cannot be in our intellect and in our sensorial at the same time. So there's a very important shift to operate when we feel an emotion, is to stop being led by our emotion, stop being led by our thoughts, and consciously doing the action of thinking about what's happening in our body physiologically. Once we shift our attention from our thought to our sensations, something magical is happening, which is that your emotional reaction stops. That means that if you're having a panic attack, if you stop and you pay attention to those physical sensations present in your body at that time, the panic attack per se, the panic reaction, is going to stop. You're now only going to be in touch with the physical sensations present in your body. So there is no more space to freak out, basically. You're in touch with the DNA of your emotion, so to speak.
Yeah. Wow.
And from this point, you're basically back in the driver's seat. You're basically back in a position of power, in a position of being in charge of what's happening in your body. Your emotion is not driving you anymore.
Yeah, and what greater feeling, right, than feeling like you're in control. Yeah. Absolutely.
And at this point, once you're connected to your physical sensations, you need to observe those sensations as they change in your body. And again, you might need a little trainings, but go to the website, check out the information, book a training. It is for life once you know how to do it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It makes perfect sense to me. It really does. Really does.
Thank you.
Yeah, this has been such an informative podcast. I'm just like in awe. I need time to like re-listen to it and think about all of it. It's just been a lot of knowledge. I can't thank you enough. Oh,
you're welcome.
I always ask one final question to all my people that I interview. So I'm going to ask it of you.
Yeah.
So if you could give your younger self one sentence of advice, if you could like go back in time, what would you tell your younger self, knowing what you know now?
Yeah. Get out of your head and follow your guts.
There you go. That's so good.
You know, it's we know what's the best for us. The problem is we let our fears coming between us and our dream. I love for everybody that listens to your podcast to know that every single fear can be resolved.
That's powerful.
Every single fear can be resolved.
Yeah.
Trust me. You know, you can do it. You can do it.
That is just like so powerful. So powerful.
I mean, imagine a world when there is no fear, you know? I mean, no fear means no more racism, no more of, if you look at the world today, it's a magnifying glass of what's going on in every single one of us. You know, it's just an agglomeration of fears, of anger, and anger is based on fear.
Right.
If we just take care of ourselves, if we just focus on ourselves and take the time to resolve our fears, resolve our anger, resolve our anxiety, we're just putting a bit more peace in this world.
Yeah.
One cell at a time.
There you go. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for spending this past, 40 minutes with me. It's awesome. I can't wait to share with my listeners. So thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, Maury.
You bet. Hey, thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you can, take a moment and give us a review. And please join the VIP room in Facebook for more discussion and insights. You can find us at Graceful Healing Podcast VIP room. See you there and see you next time.